So I want to talk about what a lot of the things she's bringing up in this video. And she's talking about the Heritage Foundation's plan, right? Now, the with Project 2025, you know that they have been planning this for over 15 years. And I know that in places like Atlanta, where women were and young girls were coming up missing, you know, I mean, there's a lot to that, like the Pizzagate thing and all the conspiracy theories that people are saying. But now we're seeing that a lot of the children that have been coming up missing or had been coming up missing, um, we got a whole child trafficking ring with the Epstein files and things like that. So a lot of it's not far fetched. But she's going to talk about what their plan is for women. They basically want to take women out of the workforce. They're going to take away welfare. They're going to take away all these different programs that actually subsidize families that don't make a lot of money. And they still want these children to be born, right? Please go check this video out from her. It is so well put together. But I just want to play a couple parts of it because I have my conspiracy thought process on it. And I want her to say, but I know she probably can't say these things and legitimize her channel. Okay? But I have a lot of theories about it.
Child. Instead, the authors promote something called restorative reproductive medicine, which is focused on natural fertility and explicitly rejects what they call technocratic or dystopian solutions like artificial wombs. This is very MAHA, make America healthy again, this kind of non-science-based BS. By the way,
I just want to say this part. They know that these artificial wombs is not a thing. The divine creator did not make this to be a reality for human beings to regenerate and to create more human beings. Okay, that's not how the creator put it in us, in our DNA, or as women. It doesn't work that way. So what the real plan is to not have an artificial womb, but an actual womb, an inseminated womb, and create offspring through women or young girls who don't choose that at all. Another woman was talking about the farms that they want to create, and this is what they think they're going to do. When we talk about evil, a form of evil, this is a fucking form of evil. What's planned? Okay. Now she's not saying this, but I'm saying this. They're not going to do artificial wombs. They've tried that. It didn't work out. They couldn't get what they're looking for. But I want to tell them that if you put, just like you do chickens and cut their legs off and have them producing eggs, right? In these farms, these farms that are not free range and what have you, and pigs are in stalls that are 3x4 and they can't move around and they just suckle pigs, and then when that whole thing, right? You can't create offspring that you personally really want in a confined state like that. So the psyche of the animal is fucked up, and then it breeds anything that eats off of that animal, that type of fear and I just want to say chaos, because that's what it is to me. It's chaos, mentally chaos for the animal. What do you think they would do if they were doing this to human beings and human women and young girls? What do you think it would do to their psyche? I just want people to think on that. And what type of children would be produced out of that. And you can already get an idea of that by men who have taken women and forced them into basements for 10, 15 years. They had stolen them off the streets and then got them impregnated, and then the children that were born, they suffer. Their mental state suffers, like completely suffers. And I'm not even saying that they're going to put these children, I can go so far into the weeds with this. It's not even funny. But believe me, none of it's good. Let's play this.
The only people I hear talking about artificial wombs are men when they're trying to threaten women into settling for some dusty who refuses to wash his ass and doesn't own a bed frame. By attacking IVF, the policy aims to control how and when families are made. They claim they're trying to save the family while simultaneously stripping away the tools that modern families use to actually exist. This policy position proves that this is not about having more babies. It's about having babies within a specific kind of family structure. By the way, the policy is completely counterintuitive to raising the birth rate because older women are the only women that are having more babies. The birth rate decline has largely been driven by women under the age of 30 having fewer children. Children born to teenage girls and 20-something women were the bread and butter of the American birth rate.
Yeah.
They are the demographic of women whose birth rate has declined the most. In 1990, teen pregnancy accounted for 13% of all births. In 2023, it only made up 4%. During that time period, the fertility rate for women ages 35 to 39 increased by 71%. And for women ages 40 to 44, it increased by 127%. So if your goal is to increase the birth rate, why would you remove access to the reproductive technology used by the only demographic of women whose birth rates are actually rising? Because raising the birth rate is not the primary goal. Those older women still got to go to college. They still got to have jobs. They still got to have careers. They have economic autonomy. And that is what the Heritage Foundation is really targeting. It's not about getting more women to have babies. It's about coercing women into having babies earlier by removing their options, which also limits their educational opportunities and earning capacity, forcing them to increasingly rely financially on men, which makes them easier to control. The report leans heavily on bioessentialism. This is the idea that men and women have fixed innate roles that are biologically determined. Men and women, they say, bring unique and complementary assets to the vocation of parenthood. By the way, when you see the word vocation used in a policy paper, that's a big red flag. That word is used heavily in white Christian nationalist culture. It means a divine calling, how God calls you to serve him in the world. It has a deeply religious connotation. I've talked about benevolent sexism on my channel. Saving America by Saving the Family is a textbook example of it. This is the kind of sexism that insists that it loves women, values mothers, and wants to support families while quietly stripping women of autonomy and narrowing the range of lives that are deemed legitimate. It doesn't attack women directly.
Is traditional foundation making you look worse? Traditional foundations are not great for lines in the face. It's sticky and good.
Lives that are deemed legitimate. It doesn't attack women directly. It praises them, and that praise is precisely how the control is justified. The report frames women primarily as mothers, caregivers, and moral anchors of the household. It speaks the language of protection and support, reducing the burdens of child rearing, honoring the sacrifice, restoring dignity to the home, but only within a very specific arrangement: heterosexual marriage, biological parenthood, and gendered labor roles. And the women are only valued so long as they perform those roles correctly. Their labor in the home is romanticized.
They aren't really valued, because the reason why the feminist movement really took off into the 60s is because those roles, women were at home, and even though their husbands were the so-called breadwinners, their husbands weren't actually supporting the family. And a lot of these women from the early 1920s into the 1960s and 70s, they weren't bringing the paycheck home. They were misusing the funds, right? These men. And so these women were out there asking neighbors and friends and anybody they could to feed their family because the husband wasn't doing those things. So this is what the Heritage Foundation is going to try to bring back into America, is where they call it a stable home front, but when a husband is supposed to be the only breadwinner and there's no groceries being brought into the house, kids are starving, and they have to steal to actually eat and things like that. That's the type of environment. They don't want a welfare system. They want to cut the welfare system completely out. So even if a woman was married with a husband and they couldn't afford anything, they want to cut all that out anyways. And back then, when the women, this is why welfare was created for white women, is because white men weren't bringing the paycheck home. They weren't sustaining the household. So women had to go to their government and try to get some kind of supplication for what their husband wasn't doing. And that was that so-called family structure where she didn't have an education. She couldn't go to school. She couldn't be a breadwinner too. And this is why the welfare system initially was created. So when you hear white nationalists try to tell you about who's on welfare, ask them why the welfare system was created in the first place. Why was the food stamp system and welfare system created for the white women in the first place? If these men of the family structure were doing what they were supposed to be doing, why was it created in the first place? Ask these white nationalists that. Please do.
Subsidized and elevated rhetorically, while their participation in the workforce is treated as a social problem to be managed rather than a right to be protected. The report does not argue that women are inferior. It argues that women are special. Anytime you hear language saying women are special, that should be a red flag too. It casts motherhood as women's highest calling and presents state intervention as the way to free women from economic pressure by making dependence on marriage more financially attractive and independence more precarious. Policies like FAM and HCE credits are framed as giving women choices, but those choices are carefully engineered. Support is conditioned on marriage, biological parenthood, and work thresholds, while alternative arrangements like single parenthood, cohabitation, and delayed marriage, child-free adulthood are quietly penalized or excluded. The report repeatedly claims to respect Americans' freedom and agency, yet its policy logic depends on steering behavior through economic pressure. That contradiction is central to benevolent sexism. Women are said to be free, but only free to choose what the state has already decided is best for them. If a woman wants children outside of marriage, she's irresponsible. If she prioritizes career stability before motherhood, she's delaying what she owes to society. If she relies on childcare to remain employed, the policy framework treats this as a distortion in need of correction.
You know what I don't see from the Heritage Foundation? What I don't see, well, we already know it's a white supremacist organization, but what I don't see them creating environments if they want men to be head of households, or even ask men if they want to do that, because I know that there is a whole movement of men who absolutely do not want to be breadwinners, and they don't want to be in a family structure. MGTOW is one of them groups, and they don't want any part of this constructed environment that the Heritage Foundation is trying to create. They don't want that shit. So basically telling these men they don't get a right to choose either, right? So they're going to force these men into marriages that they don't want to be in. And for God's sake, look at the Republican Party. And I hate to say it all the time, because at least the Democratic Party, being gay and being out, is you can do that. You can be out of the closet as a Democrat. And very few are in the closet, right? However, there's a whole lot of gay men in the Republican Party, in Republican politics, and they are scared to come out, right? So this Heritage Foundation hasn't actually, this is what let me go back to this. So Trump ran on Make America Great. However, he didn't make infrastructure where industry was back in America before he started this campaign, or before he started the bullshit he was doing with deportations and all the shit he was doing and the tariffs. There was no infrastructure created prior to doing these steps they were making. So they have basically collapsed the economy, because nothing they've done has built a strength in America. And this is what MAGA does not understand. They don't understand that it was never about making America great. It was about collapsing America. And then once they collapsed America, agencies like the Heritage Foundation could come in, swoop in, and start forcing their policies on people. It was never about making America great. If it was about making America great, there would have been infrastructure already started to be built when it comes to industries in America, and creating jobs that men, if they wanted to be in families and have wives, could support their wives and families. And that's not what they did. It's absolutely not what they did. So now they want to force people into their paradigm, their idea of their American structure, and they don't give a fuck about anybody's opinion about it.
Since her choices are acceptable only when they align with the preferred moral outcome. The report never explicitly says women should be forced back into the home. Instead, it builds a system where staying home is rewarded, leaving the home is punished, and dependency on a man is reframed as a virtue. It uses the language of care to mask the reality.
There are women who want to be stay-at-home moms. I get it. And she should be able to do that. If her and her husband want that type of structure, then yes, it would be beneficial for a government to make America a strength where that the income that he can make, if that's what he chooses to do, being the breadwinner, the total breadwinner, and she wants to be the stay-at-home mom because they both agree upon it, right? Then that would be a lovely thing. But what they're implementing, or what they're trying to do, is force it. And forcing it never comes out to be a good effect. Usually there will be violence in the home. Children and women will pay the price of the violence, because when men feel the weight of the shoulder of having to be a sole provider, when they don't have what it takes to be a sole provider, then it's going to wreak havoc again in America. These plans, it's not a new plan that what the Heritage Foundation is trying. This has happened before, and it has failed. And the reason why we are at where we're at now is forcing people to be in a paradigm that religion has chosen for them. And not even you having the right to choose your religion, but them choosing the religion for you, which is white nationalist Christianity. And I'm going to end it here.